3 days in a row talking about this guy. You know, let's just dive into it here. So we've been making a bunch of videos, 2 in fact. Yeah, like 2 is a bunch, right? I don't really think it is, I'm not gonna lie. But still, we made a video 2 days ago talking about Kirby Dach, and a report from donlescoulisses.com from Maxime Truman that said that Dach's recovery in the summer hasn't been going all too well. It proclaimed the idea that maybe Dach wasn't actually progressing as fast as we hoped he should have been, and there were some concerns as to whether or not he was lifting little in the gym. But after we made that video, actually I should be showing you this here on the YouTube channel, so after we made this video about the bad news for Kirby Dach, we had a report yesterday from Eric Engels, which went out there and kind of backtracked it a little bit, and it said, no, Dach is actually doing okay. We spoke about this yesterday, and the update was very positive. But now, we're going back over onto donlescoulisses.com because this entire Dach situation, it's gotten more mysterious. And I think mysterious is the right word to use here, because when you think about some of the other pieces of information that we have gotten over the past few months, things start to not really fit together the best. And I'll leave it to the article written and published by Felix Forget. It's going to be linked in the description. I'll leave this article there to make that point. So let's dive into this piece right here from yesterday, August 6th. If Kirby Dach really hasn't suffered a setback, something is wrong. The article starts out by citing the prior report. On Monday morning, Maxime Truman published a piece reporting that Kirby Dach is still recovering from knee surgery. This is obviously cause for concern, especially given that he is seen as the Canadiens' default second-line center heading into next season. Will he be able to play alongside of Ivan Demidov? The question arises. What's peculiar and concerning, though, is that when Kirby Dach got his surgery, the Montreal Canadiens hockey team themselves noted that Dach was expected to be fully recovered before the start of next season. And that, theoretically, suggests that he was expected to be pretty healthy at camp. Scroll down, you'll see the tweet. The Montreal Canadiens posted this tweet on February 28th, 2025, after Kirby Dach underwent successful surgery to his right knee. The procedure was performed in Montreal by Dr. Thierry Pauillot. I think I did a good job, I apologize to the Pauillot family. And a full Dach recovery is expected before the start of next season. As we said, end of February. Pretty much the start of March, so let's do March, April, May, June, July, August. It's now August. It's been 6 months. Reports are coming out from Maxime Truman that Dach's recovery has not been going well. And you got another month-ish, month and a half before training camp starts, so Kirby Dach was given about a 7.5-month window to be able to be ready by the Montreal Canadiens Twitter account themselves. This is not even taking into account off-season training, if he's even capable of doing that. Eric Engels said that Dach's training is going well and the guy's progressing properly, but the article goes out there and gives a little bit of a different response. Let's dive into this. This is all why the information shared by Engels this afternoon is intriguing. The informant first notes that it was, quote-unquote, never guaranteed that Dach would be ready for the start of camp, even though the hockey team themselves claimed that Dach would be fully healed, quote, before the start of the season. Unless we expected him to be healthy exactly 2 days before the start of the season, but do you really believe that? So we have to ask ourselves whether Dach has suffered a setback in his recovery. This is a legitimate question, But on this level too, Engels is reassuring. He affirms that Dach has not suffered a setback and that Dach is progressing well. The article then has the tweet that we saw from Eric Engels. 1, it was never guaranteed that Dach would be ready for the start of training camp, and it's also premature to suggest that he won't be. And 2, suggestions that Dach has had a setback in his recovery are completely false. Not only has he not had a setback, he's progressing really well, and, according to my sources, is crushing his summer training. That's all. Hope everyone is enjoying the sunshine. Yeah, it's still rainy here in Vancouver, so not really enjoying the sunshine over here. But this is the wording that Engels uses. It wasn't guaranteed that Dach would be ready for the start of training camp. Okay. The Montreal Canadiens said that he should be fully recovered before the start of the season. Now, spoiler alert, training camp doesn't necessarily take that long, right? So would it not be questionable to consider Montreal's projected timeline for Kirby Dach? You wouldn't think like, oh yeah, he's going to be fully recovered before the start of next season, like 2 or 3 days before the start of the season. That's when they're expecting him to be recovered. You would reasonably assume that training camp would be within that bubble, right? I guess Eric Engels is correct in that it was not guaranteed that he'd be ready for the start of camp, but it still feels kind of odd. This is what the article goes out there and says. So to summarize, the Canadiens claimed that Dach would be ready before the start of the season. But according to Engels, who maintains that Dach has not suffered a slight back, this was never guaranteed. There's something somewhere that's not working, right? Is it possible that Dach is recovering a little slower than expected? It's possible, and one might think the Canadiens would be better off keeping it quiet. It would put less heat on Dach's shoulders, but it would also allow the club to not give too much leverage to another team if they want to trade for a second-line center, like Mason McTavish. That makes a lot of sense. That is the eureka moment there, isn't it? If the Anaheim Ducks knew that Dach wasn't recovering well from his surgery, they could afford to raise their demands on the Habs for McTavish. They would be in a strong position in that case. So at the moment, there is something sticking in this whole issue. Because today, the picture of the situation is not what it was at the end of February. And this article says that's cause for concern. Now, I want to ask you here, am I making it worse by making this video? Let's say Pat Verbeek, goodness forbid any NHL person actually watches these videos, but let's say Pat Verbeek watches this YouTube video and he's like, hey, wait a minute, the Kirby Dach timeline is kind of weird. Montreal said this, and then Eric Engels is saying something else. I mean, this guy might not be healthy, who really knows, which gives us leverage in trade talks. Goodness forbid, again, anybody in the NHL actually watches a video that I make, but, that does start to become a little bit fishy, does it not? So, ultimately, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you respond to the Kirby Dach discourse when Eric Engels says that Dach was not guaranteed to be ready for the start of camp, and the Canadiens said back in February that he should be fully recovered before the start of next season? Technically, those are not conflicting statements, but any reasonable person would think that training camp is such a short amount of time that if you think that this guy is not going to be ready before training camp, but ready before the start of the season, does that not give him any time to get ready? I don't know. How does this play into trade talks? How does this play into leverage talks? Does that actually matter here for the Montreal Canadiens? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.